It's a Friday night here at the Marina Bay circuit. We have reached Singapore. We have reached round 8 of the looks absolutely stunning. The cars will look different under the lights. It is a wonderful spectacle. But Anthony Davidson, there is a key 60 minutes going on here for all the teams. And there's a lot of news around this paddock as well, which we'll get to in a couple of moments.
This is a critical session, like you say, Crofty. These conditions, the light conditions as well, represent where we're going to be when we get to qualifying. As you can see there on the right-hand side of the screen, the temperatures, the humidity, and the wind direction and strength. So it's not such a strong wind. We thought it was causing a bit of difficulties for some of the drivers out there, particularly into turn 16. You would have seen on the track map there, it's the last of the DRS zones on the lap. 4 DRS zones now here, so different from last year. In turn 16, that last chicane before the 2 final fast corners of the lap was proving to be a tricky one for the drivers to navigate their way through.
Now, you started the day at the Skypad talking about McLaren's rear wing from Baku. You're not going to be analysing that rear wing again, Anthony Davidson.
Won't I?
No, with Ted Kravitz, we're not going to see it again, are we?
Hello, Crofty. Hello, Anthony. Hello, everybody from the pit lane. Well, we're not going to see that particular wing in the Formula 1, the Azerbaijan Grand Prix in. And remember, let's just set the story for anybody who missed it. In the words of Charles Leclerc, man, that McLaren is quick in a straight line. Leclerc closed as much as he could, but couldn't pass the McLaren after Oscar Piastri had passed Leclerc. So people were looking at the wing and the little split between the rear wing main plane and the flap that was opening up a bit. People were calling it a mini DRS, Crofty. So effectively, sort of, doing the same kind of thing that a drag reduction system would do, but not opening the top flap. There's been lots of words from Red Bull, lots of casting doubt on the rear wing, but it's legal. It passes all the tests. There's no problem, say the FIA, or at least the FIA started the weekend saying there's no problem with the rear wing. And now it seems everybody's had a change of mind, because we have confirmed from McLaren, while our Baku rear wing complies with the regulations, passed all the FIA deflection tests, of course it does, it's legal, that's the point. McLaren have proactively offered to make some minor adjustments to the wing following conversations with the FIA. We'd expect the FIA to have similar conversations with other teams in relation to the compliance of their wings. So McLaren having a go, obviously, for your team's wings in there as well. But 2 questions for me. First of all, will this make a material difference, Crofty, to the McLaren's performance at circuits where we might have seen that lower downforce rear wing, i.e. Las Vegas? McLaren say no, it will not. So that's the answer to that. And secondly, why have they changed it if it was legal, was passing all the tests? Back to you. The answer.
Well, I'll give you an answer from a quote that I've seen from Helmut Marko speaking in the paddock, Red Bull's director of the racing program, the race driver development program, who says 3 times we protested against McLaren's rear wing. Today the FIA made a very correct decision. McLaren's rear wing is not allowed. Now it's time to look at their front wing. So Helmut Marko not satisfied with that one. There's some dots on a rear wing there on George Russell's Mercedes. This, Anthony, is what the FIA use to ensure that they're happy with the legality of rear wings.
It's one of the metrics that they use. Obviously, there's a static test where they put load on the wing when the car's under their watchful eye in the pit lane. But some would argue that's not enough. We're seeing it past the test, but yet when it's on track and we've got the rear view camera, we see the rear wings moving. And this has been going on for, I think, decades, actually, in Formula One. Certainly since I've been a test driver way back in the early 2000s, this has been going on. And you're always trying to shed unnecessary drag from these cars, but keeping the maximum downforce when you get to a corner. So obviously you don't need downforce in a straight line. So the FIA have gone, right, the static test is obviously complex to produce, it's costly to produce, and arguably not catching everything.
Yeah.
So it slips through that net sometimes. So then they've put these dots on the rear wing. We saw that come in 2021, I believe, because we had Mercedes and Red Bull arguing
about the legality of a rear wing.
And who was doing what? They're flexing more than us. No, they are more than us. And that went on pretty much all year, till we got those dots. And now what the FIA are able to do, supposedly, is to look back from the rear view camera with a metric that they put over, like a grid system, where they can see those dots line up, and if the dots move too much, you're deemed to be running an illegal car.
Yeah.
They don't want to see that wing again. But it's taken up until now for that wing to be considered, well, you're not allowed to run that wing again.
So I think what's happened here is that it passes all the tests, and Oscar Piastri, race winner in Baku, his car was scrutineered. After the race in Baku, it passed all the scrutineering checks and tests. And the FIA, they do the checks and tests and say, right, it's passed, it's absolutely fine. But when another team starts to ask questions or protest, then the FIA are duty-bound to look into it again. That seems to be what has happened. And I just get the feeling a conversation has gone on behind the scenes where the FIA have said, look, I know it's passing the test, but what we saw in Baku, we think is very much on the limit, near it or maybe over it.
My radio button gets stuck.
Okay, copy that.
You might need to be careful what he says there. As he's going around the track, Max Verstappen, we'll get on to him and his views in a few moments' time, but it's just one of the many things that can happen here. His teammate Sergio Perez has been shown a black and white flag for failing to follow race director's instructions. He's crossed the line at the pit exit. You have to stay to the left-hand side of the white line until it finishes, and then you can get back out onto the track again. But I think conversations have gone on behind the scenes, and I just get the feeling McLaren have said, right, okay, we might need to just trim back a little bit on what we had in Baku, because what we don't want is to race that wing again, it gets protested, and we lose on a technical decision points in a race, because they can't afford to do that because it's a tight championship. Fair?
Yeah, I think that's totally fair, and I think other teams may be out there kicking themselves that this is the only way they can pull them back, because they didn't think of it first. And for me, that's ingenuity. That's what Formula One's all about. It passes the tests. Innocent till proven guilty.
Absolutely.
They're innocent.
But they won't be proven guilty because we won't see that wing again. Ted.
No, just to clarify a couple of things. When Helmut Marko says we protested it 3 times, he doesn't mean we lodged official protests, does he?
We just raised it.
So we raised the question informally or officially or unofficially with the FIA. So that's what he means. We haven't seen an official protest. And I think you're right. The only rule having passed the deflection test that McLaren could have been done on had they raced it again and someone lodged an official protest is the old well, the old classic one with flexi wings is that all the bodywork must be rigidly sprung, you know, rigidly mounted in relation to the other ones. We've heard that one, haven't we, Crofty? We've heard that being tried to be used against other flexible bits of bodywork throughout Formula One history. So I think that's the only one that they fear they might have been done on, and the fact that they think they can make their adjustments, alterations, amendments to the wing and still stay competitive is the point as why McLaren were happy to do that.
Exactly. Lando Norris went fastest. Charles Leclerc has now gone ahead of him. Alex Albon is up there in the top 3. Max Verstappen on the hard tyre, currently 5th, with a gap of 1 second to Charles Leclerc. This is Sergio Perez crossing the line at the pit exit. So how did... Oh, I see. He was trying to get out of the way, wasn't he?
Oh, it wasn't his fault.
Aston Martin. Well, he's obliged to stay behind the Aston Martin, but he came around the corner and it caught him by surprise.
He did. I mean, there's a blind corner, there's a car stationary in front of you, and he's gone over the white line in avoidance. For me, I would, it's a free practice session anyway.
Yeah.
If it was qualifying, it might be a different matter, but I'd like to think that the stewards would look at that
There's
in a
mitigating
lenient
circumstances.
Exactly. I think there was nothing that he could do. You go around the corner of the stationary car in front of you. I mean, what do you do? Like, you prefer to hit the car up the back? Is that safer than going over a white line?
The question I'd ask, Ant, is that's the second time today Sergio Perez has had an incident leaving the pits. He blocked Valtteri Bottas when he came out of the pits by not staying a little bit more over to the left-hand side. Is he being told on his radio what's round the corner or who's coming round the corner? Because it could be that he's not being told, and that's why he got caught by surprise there, and by Bottas as well.
All he knows is that there was a car in front of him that had left the pit lane, and you would expect them, therefore, to just carry on. That's what got him into trouble earlier on with Bottas. It's just, it is a very difficult pit lane exit at the best of times to not get in anyone's way. And we talked about this in FP1, the GPS signals, I'm sure, on this track, all the high-rise buildings, it's a bit compromised as well, a bit like in Monaco or other street tracks that we go to. So I'll give them benefit of the doubt, but what I saw there from riding on board as Checo, there's nothing that he could have done apart from what he did. It really surprised him.
Right, let's get to the action then. We're just over 7 minutes into this, and everyone has come out to the track and has completed at least one lap. And in Fernando Alonso's case, a very slow preparation lap as well. He doesn't seem to be pressing as many buttons on this lap as he was at one stage during FP1, where he was getting all into a kerfuffle with saving the car as he got onto the curb and pressing a load of buttons at the same time as well. Where is the competitiveness of the Aston Martin this weekend after Alonso finished 6th in Baku, albeit aided by that late crash between Sergio Perez and Carlos Sainz? We'll see in a moment as he crosses the line. Just 2 more corners to go, and you pretty much take it flat out. He goes 10th fastest.
The interesting difference of lines as Albon sets the fastest first sector of anybody. Interesting difference of lines in 16 and 17 from what I analysed on the SkyPad post FP1, where Leclerc took a lot of curb on the inside of turn 16 to help get through 17 quicker. There it looked like with Fernando that he wasn't able even to meet that curb. This corner, I know this is 14, so it's the next right-hander coming up that we're now looking at with Albon. So let's see how Alex takes this corner. I believe that what Leclerc did before, taking a bit of that curve, yeah, Albon did it as well. And then you avoid the turn 17 curb to give you a cleaner run through that corner where it's risky if you get too close to the wall. That was a nice end to the lap for Albon and a really strong lap. Anyway, in total, so 2 tenths away from Leclerc. Brilliant stuff. And Colapinto as well pops it into P3 for now.
Right, so Leclerc, Albon, medium tyres. Ricciardo goes fastest, medium tyres. Colapinto half a second down on the hard compound tyre. Track evolving all the time. We're on board with the McLaren here of Lando Norris, whose hands are all a blur at the steering wheel.
And did we pick him up, Crofty, in that moment where he was just bouncing off the curb? Yeah, there we go. That's the way. You take. Actually, he's grabbed a bit of curb on the left-hand side as well.
If you want to continue to ride on board with Lando Norris, you can do so. Don't forget, all 20 on boards and the team radio available to you via the Sky Sports app. You need your login. Use the QR code if you want. Makes it nice and easy for you. And if you're watching on Sky Q, Sky Stream, Sky Glass, or now, you can use the interactive button on your remote control as we watch Fernando Alonso. Here's another on board coming your way. And is he going to lock up going into the turn? We're never going to find out.
I think it was more about the traffic that he had to deal with on the exit, and there's an exit out of turn 13 for Albon.
He's already gone 2 centimetres close to the wall. Has he reduced that in half?
Well, as Juan Pablo Montoya once said, nearly doesn't count.
And talking of which, happy birthday, Juan Pablo Montoya, 49 today. Let's go to a man who looks 49 and he's on the inside of turn 1 at the moment. Martin Brundle in the night time in Singapore.
I am indeed. It's inside turn 1. It's pit lane exit as well. We see turn 2 down there. The Aston Martin and Fernando Alonso goes through there. And the entry to turn 3 is very, very atmospheric here. Big crowds everywhere. I call them Chinese lanterns, but they must be Singaporean lanterns up on top of the grandstand in the hospitality.
Grip and lock speed. Front and rear.
Very inside of the corner. We'll get to see the start as well. It's very interesting. So the track has been resurfaced in places, but it's also been high pressure washed. Now we saw that has damaged some circuits in the past, but it also brings a relatively new bitumen tarmac alive. And I think that's why we're seeing quite good grip and good times around here. Through this section, there's a nasty bump on the apex of turn 2 over there, where you can see the curve. And the worst car over that bump, by a margin, I would say, is the Mercedes-Benz. Actually, it's really low, hits the ground, really stiff. Now this is a circuit where you need to ride the curves, ride the bumps, and it really does. I mean, they're probably given good downforce in other parts of the track. We'll wait and see if we get a merge.
So it looks like we're struggling with traction to 7, 8, 9, 13.
Yeah, I got no rear end.
Very supple indeed, I must say. How's the Red Bull? The Red Bull looking quite good. It's on hard compound tyres. They're little Alpine, a little bit of vertical movement they don't want, because you can hear it breaking traction actually. The red arrow over on the far side there in the distance. If you make a mistake and you run wide here in the race, you're obliged to go all the way over there and join on the outside of turn 3 effectively. So it's quite a high penalty if they make a mistake. Now 6 of the Grand Prix in our calendar, 1/4 of the races are at night. And of course, with floodlights, and it's really interesting which liveries pop out of the racetrack. The McLaren one here really does. The RB one does as well. Some of the cars, that looks quite good, doesn't it? But a lot of the cars just sort of get lost a little bit, and the teams I don't think are putting enough thought into livery at night now, given how many key night races that we have. Just a point of view. And here comes the Ferrari of Carlos Sainz. But it's very much, as soon as you get the nose in, they're just playing with the throttle. They never ever go full throttle through this section. It's pick a throttle level, keep it reasonably consistent, tolerate turn 2, get the nose into 3, and then let the car go. So there's a lot of technique, there's a lot of finesse involved in there. It's not point and squirt, give it full beans and go by any stretch of the imagination. So that's turns 1, 2 and 3 for you.
Love it.
So it looks like we're struggling with traction to 7, 8, 9, 13.
Yeah, I got no rear end.
So Martin mentioned that the Mercedes looked the worst car coming through these series of corners at 1, 2 and 3. Lewis Hamilton complaining that he's got no rear end. Max Verstappen saying he's struggling for grip a certain amount as well, which is a bit strange given that this track is quite a grippy circuit, as Martin was explaining, with the high pressure wash that they give it.
And the lap time straight away in FP1 rivaled that of the best lap time we saw in qualifying from Carlos Sainz last year at 1 minute 30.9. So the track is quite grippy, like you say, as what's this with Max Verstappen in turn 7, running too wide there. Now he said that he's struggling with slow speed.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, no harm done there, but obviously in qualifying that would be your lap gone, all 4 wheels over the white line, and also the penalty of not optimizing it anywhere near where you should be in terms of lap time. So I wouldn't class turn 7 as a slow speed corner, but Mercedes, interesting that they're classing it as a traction limited corner.
Yeah.
So on the exit you need to have that traction there, and obviously no traction control in Formula 1, so the driver's right foot is doing all of the work, and an area where Lewis is clearly struggling with the car at this point in time, but obviously we don't know fuel loads and what setup they're running on the car, so you know there's still a long way to go in the session of 45 minutes still remaining.
Alex Albon's back in the pits again, 1:32.2 for the fastest time, about 3.5 tenths clear of Yuki Tsunoda. We saw, Anthony, when he crossed the line, the garage applauding the lap. Fair play, it was a very good lap, but this is only a practice session. We don't really see applause in the garage for a good time in practice.
I can't remember the last time, honestly speaking, the last time I saw a team applaud when the driver would to go fastest in the free practice session, no matter which stage of the session you're on. But Sainz has improved the first sector. Our pole man from last year, of course, as we watch George Russell attack turns 16 and 17, very close. And this is what you'd expect in the last, I'd say, well, the most realistic session in FP2 before we get to qualifying tomorrow. So Russell pops it into P2. Let's see where Sainz is. He's already almost 3/10 up by the second sector. So the lap times continue to tumble here.
Interestingly, I think Albon and Russell really pushing, and still Alex Albon is ahead by about 1/10 of a second to George Russell. Just that round of applause. Ooh,
that was a bit, yeah, sorry to butt in there. That was an over-rotation, as they call it. The car started to pivot, and then it went way too much as he exited 16.
Look how much time he lost. About 8/10 of a second in that final sector.
And this is what we hear when the drivers say over-rotation. That's exactly what they're talking about, where the rear tries to overtake the front as you're going through the corner. And that will be noted, of course, from Sainz. As what are we looking at here in the pit lane?
Colapinto at 60 kilometres an hour. He's got the right garage. He hasn't got the right garage.
To be fair, that caught me out as well.
Well, I just think it's exactly the same colour in the night. So what is that? Alpine? It's Alpine in front. You got to look at the pink helmets.
Yeah, the pink helmets give it away. And the jack man in front beckoning him on. No, go.
Look, it happens to the best of them. Lewis, when he went from McLaren, he got the wrong pit stop. Jensen, I think, did it in a race, didn't he?
He did do it, yeah. I've seen it many times. It is difficult. In American racing, they give you a countdown.
Do they?
So as you come down the pit lane, they'll give a count from 10 or 5. And it's so accurate. The spotters that they have there is really good. And I don't know why Formula 1 have never adopted that.
I'll tell you what, in our gallery, Hannah, she would be brilliant at that, counting down for someone's pit stop. She never misses a beat when she's counting down. It's how we know things are going to happen sometimes. We get a countdown from 10. Meanwhile, counting up, Charles Leclerc, 27 seconds for the first sector. 38.7 for the second sector. They're both purple. Charles Leclerc absolutely on it, as his teammate Carlos Sainz was just a few moments ago, before it all got just a little bit harum-scarum in the final sector and under braking. I don't think the rear end was massively stable there for Charles Leclerc and gave him the grip that they wanted. Hannah is saying 5 seconds, and Charles Leclerc is going to cross the line. He crosses the line now. It was exactly 4.5 seconds, Hannah. It's a 1:31.6, and he's half a second clear of Alex Albon.
Yeah, so Leclerc had it under control in 16, 17. That's where I picked out that he was very strong at the end of FP1 when he topped the times, and he's done it once again in that final sector. So Leclerc gelling with this Ferrari here in Singapore so far. Clearly the driver to beat and the car to beat.
Yeah, so we're about 19 minutes into this session, and it's half a second between Charles Leclerc and Alex Albon, with George Russell 7/10 back. Yuki Tsunoda up in the top 4, 2 Ferraris in the top 5. And Sergio Perez still running around on the hard tyres with a little more fuel on board, I think. Just on a different program to some of the others. I'm expecting Sergio Perez to be up there and in contention. These are the sort of track he's won here before. 2022, slow corners, good traction needed coming out of the slow corners. Watching those rear tyres, nursing them, keeping grip longer towards the end of a stint, where he can then have the benefit. That has been his hallmark and his calling card for many, many years.
But he's also a driver that's not scared of putting in or over-slipping the front tyre. And I think in turn that protects the rear tyre. By that I mean breaking the adhesion of the front tyre, so over-slipping it intentionally. And by doing that, like I say, the rear tyres should be a bit more of your friend. That's not going to be the end of the car that starts to slide if one end is sliding more. So he's not shy of turning the steering wheel, or overturning the steering wheel, the necessary. That seems to be his style and what lends itself well to street circuits. But here comes Sainz.
Much better final sector from Carlos Sainz this time around, and he goes second fastest, 2.5 tenths down on his teammate Charles Leclerc on the medium tyre, which has done 9 laps in total. Charles Leclerc has also done 9 laps over 2 stints.
All over the place.
They're struggling, aren't they, Red Bull, to find a good setup here at the moment?
Yeah, he's done, what, 3 time laps on the hard tyre, came in, made a change, and now he's done 4 time laps on that hard tyre. So, I mean, still fairly young for the tyre, but so he hasn't really got the excuse there of he's gone well over the peak.
That stat about Lewis Hamilton joining Fernando Alonso as the only 2 drivers to complete over 100,000 kilometres in racing. Forget testing, forget qualifying, forget practice, in racing. So we know that 100,000 kilometres is roughly 2.5 times around the equator, around the circumference of the Earth. But if you add Fernando Alonso and Lewis Hamilton's racing kilometres together, comes to 207,624 kilometres, more than halfway from the Earth to the moon. I mean, literally sending their cars into outer space.
Yeah, it's impressive stuff. These 2 drivers, you know, they're such incredible careers, and
to still be operating at the peak after all these years.
Exactly, for many drivers to try to emulate in the future. And we ride on board with the 7-time world champion, and you can clearly see what he was complaining about earlier on to Bono, his race engineer, through all of those victories at Mercedes for him, that it's not quite sticking where he wants it to.
There's no flow to it, is there? There's no, you know, when you can watch a car and you can see the rhythm, and it was the same with George Russell as well. The turns were jagged rather than kind of rhythmical and a flow.
It's like the car is 1 step ahead of you all the time, and it's never nice. No matter how good a driver you are, it's not where you want the car to be. So yeah, lots of work to be done at Mercedes back in Brackley, I'm sure, tonight.
How was that last lap?
All over the place.
Sergio Perez struggling out there, the Mercedes
Massive understeer still.
Okay, copy.
And as you can hear, understeer is a big problem, but on the soft compound tyre, it's a different story for Alex Albon in the Williams. Let's compare his best lap of a 1:32.23 on the medium compound tyre as he crosses the line of 1:31.6, so he's gone 0.6 of a second faster on the soft compound tyre. It's 1500ths, 15 thousandths, I should say, clear of Charles Leclerc, but a 6/10 margin, that's about what you'd expect from medium to soft, or maybe a couple of tenths more.
I think throwing a bit of track evolution in there, Crofty, and drivers also getting more and more up to speed on this very technical, difficult street circuit. I don't think it was his best lap,
no.
In all honesty. I think just as the camera came to him and we picked him up, I saw him get very close to the wall. I think on the exit of turn 14, it looked a little bit uncomfortable, and I think he might have lost some time there, but elsewhere on the lap as well. I think Williams would have expected a bit more performance from that, considering that, you know, all the factors we mentioned.
1:33.0.
Oh, and this might not be good for Russell. Limp home mode on the car. You can see on the left-hand side of the screen and how slowly he is going. So this is when the engine,
it's a self-defense mechanism.
It is.
Mechanism, isn't it?
It is. So it's when the engine's not happy, but the power unit's not happy. So he's going through controls here. They're the HPP controls, so directed by Mercedes, that the rotor he's changing it, and now actually the car seems to come alive. So maybe he had to fail a sensor or something there, and it's definitely resolved itself.
Yeah. So it goes into limp home mode just to protect itself, and then someone in the back of the garage will say, right, yeah, we think it's a sensor problem. This is how you fail that sensor, or don't worry, nothing to be alarmed about. These are the buttons you need to press.
Well, so that was in the nick of time, wasn't it? So he's now, DRS open, a sure sign on those soft tyres that he's pushing on this lap, and got those changes done just before he had to put his foot down on the exit of turn 19, and he has. He's done his personal best first sector as he goes through turn 8. Piastri, meanwhile, further behind him on track. sets the best sector of all, and really, turn 9, that's a brutal corner.
I was just about to say, will putting a set of soft tyres on and the extra mechanical grip you get from that, from the tyres, sort out some of the understeering problems that Mercedes are having, and then he does that.
It's always your friend, though, putting new tyres on. It's a band-aid solution for nearly all of your problems. The problem is, it doesn't last for long, and you're back to square one in no time at all. So it's about, and again, I could just see Russell fighting the rear of the car mid-corner in 14. So in many ways, like Lewis said, it's the understeer actually can go against you. So the understeer that you might have earlier on in the corner, it catches up with itself midway through the corner towards the exit, and then the car can snap on you. It's a classic moment where understeer leads to oversteer. So as he exits the final corner, does go fastest, but only a 10th faster than the Williams, with all due respect. And also on top of that, wasn't the best lap in the world from Albon. Piastri goes a little bit quicker than Russell, but again, would have expected more.
But watch this lap. Lando Norris had gone purple for both sectors. Charles Leclerc's gone quicker in the first sector. Norris put 7/10 between himself and his teammate.
That's more
Oscar
like it.
Piastri. That's a
kind of,
fine lap. But I don't think it might still not be the quickest lap we're going to see, as Hulkenberg goes 6th fastest in the Haas. 1 lap speciality Hulkenberg. Here comes Verstappen to cross the line. Only 8th fastest from Max Verstappen. The new boots, like they did with George Russell, not helping as much as they would have wanted.
How's a bit hectic?
Yeah, Aper, not the best prep.
Oh, so they're talking about his outlap there, the prep of the tyre. So, yeah, the traffic can really go against you as well. Meanwhile, we're with Leclerc. Yeah. And once again, Crofty, I'm seeing this driver-car combination here really in its happy place.
Tsunoda, 7/10 behind Norris and ahead of Piastri, which I'm sure they'll be very happy with at RB when they look at the times. And Leclerc, by just about 1/100th of a second, just shy of 1/100th of a second, goes 2nd fastest. Norris, Leclerc separated by less than 1/100th of a second. Piastri didn't get the lap in that he was expecting. Carlos Sainz, we yet to see the qualifying lap. Lewis Hamilton is all at sea behind the wheel. He's turning one way or another, desperate to try and find some grip out there. It's sliding, he's correcting. That is not a good car.
Yeah, that was nearly in the wall, that one. That was closer than what some people would imagine.
That was in the wall.
That was, yeah. Wow, just in a bid to try and use all the circuit, a little kiss of the wall there, and you've got to be careful, because those concrete walls don't move.
That's one way to straighten it up. But you wouldn't want to do that too often. That is very true. Right, the Alpine of Pierre Gasly kicks up a load of dust. Gasly currently 13th fastest, and Ted Kravitz, well, let's head down to you.
Thank you, Crofty. Yes, and in a bid to calm down the rear of that Mercedes, Lewis Hamilton's just made a change to the rear suspension, just changed the torsion bar. But just something unusual I've seen is that the chief mechanic, Matt Dean, has just been overseeing any work that goes on, or just at least that rear suspension change that goes on Lewis Hamilton's car. This after he told us yesterday, Crofty, if anyone didn't hear, that one of the issues that he had in Baku was that a change to the car was not carried out correctly, and actually had the opposite effect than that was intended for his Mercedes. It was just a little problem in the build, effectively, of the car. And now I'm seeing the chief mechanic just double checking everything that's done on Lewis's car. So I think it's belt and braces. I have seen Matt Dean do that when other things have changed on both cars before.
I touched the wall, exit of turn 14, not a big touch, but a slight one. Please check data.
Copy.
Yeah, but I thought it was just worth reporting on that one. So yeah,
absolutely.
a little bit of touching the wall from Ferrari there. Looks okay.
Charles Leclerc.
The Ferrari, yeah, seems okay though.
You know it's only a brief touch because the driver's admitting it. Is that right, Anne?
It's something like that, yeah. I mean, it is nice to own up to it, and I'm sure in time it would be noted on the data. But this is the time, Crofty, where we're seeing drivers start to push the limits, literally, in terms of track limits and how much availability you have, where you place your car, how late do you brake, how much speed do you roll into the corners, and when do you start to squeeze that throttle pedal, that 1,000 horsepower that you have under your right foot. Over all these bumps, you have to start taking risks around the track like this if you're to produce some good lap times, and that's when the fun starts.
Valtteri Bottas and Joe Guanyu separated by 19 thousandths of a second. I understand this is the first time since Bahrain, start of the season, that the two Saubers are identical this weekend. Perez is 7th, Verstappen is 12th fastest. But yeah, Bottas leads the qualifying very heavily, but they've not always been identical cars throughout this season. We'll comment on that Perez Verstappen difference of about 0.3 of a second, 0.4 of a second actually, in a moment. But let's just focus on Carlos Sainz, who is yet to complete the qualifying simulation. And how close is he going to get to his teammate and Orlando Norris at the front? Sainz goes 3rd fastest, but he is 0.6 adrift.
Yeah, couldn't nail that lap there, but maybe it was a bit conservative. We didn't see it. We picked him up quite late. I mean, here is that moment.
Watch
coming
the
up.
front left.
Yeah, it's a gentle touch, but still a touch, and it's something that maybe a little bit a lapse of concentration, just letting the car run out a bit. Well, he did have a snap quite late on, to be fair, in the corner, and yeah, you want to keep the momentum rather than pinching the car too tight. And yep, we've seen quite a few cars get close there. That was the first one we've seen just scrape the wall. Yeah,
front and rear scraping the wall at what is an 88-mile-an-hour corner. On this date, 37 years ago, Alain Prost won the Portuguese Grand Prix, ending the season in 4th. Was that the final race 37 years ago? Couldn't have been. We're September, we're not even to October yet.
That's when I started karting.
Well, 87. You were young.
Really showing my age now.
Probably 7?
8. Close, but not close.
Still young. Right, Norris and Leclerc, two drivers feeling, I'm sure, very much at home in their respective
We need to work on the front left and a bit on the brakes. And good job on the Delta.
Is that sarcastic?
No, you are good. You are good, man.
I actually thought that was a really, really good message to Yuki Tsunoda, saying, yeah, just work a little bit here, work a little bit there, and you'll get the benefits from it. But actually, you've done a really good job.
Well, yeah, I mean, they were talking about his outlap, of course, you know, working to your delta. So they've clearly set a target of how fast you need to go on the outlap. It's that critical with the tyres, the understanding that they have of the tyres today, and where you get, we heard Russell, didn't we, on the radio say, not ideal, a bit hectic, the outlap, and it's there was confirmation from his engineer as well, Marcus, saying how, yeah, we need to work on that, or just be a bit more lucky in the traffic, but it's always a bit hectic in a free practice session because so many other teams and drivers, they've got different plans at different times. So now we're seeing the soft runners out there, and this is the focus of qualifying. That's Albon is a bit of a moment that Lewis had a few laps ago through turn 9. But your main focus for this circuit, like Monaco, like Budapest, circuits that are hard to overtake on, it sways your focus towards qualifying.
Yeah, exactly. Pole here winning 9 times out of 14. You know, I said, yeah, it couldn't have been the end of the season with Alain Prost. I was teeing it up for you to tell me, yeah, that Gerhard Berger won the final 2 races in 1987 in Japan and Australia, and there were 2 more races to go, because I knew you knew that.
I was waiting for Karun Chandok's text to come in, to be honest, to correct us all.
He's just texted me now.
Oh, okay. There you go, then. Oh, we know each other so well on this team.
We do that. Thank you very much, Mr. Chandok. Oh, is that plastic bag?
I think it might have been a bit of the wrap that's on the barrier, the plastic wrapping that's on the barrier that's come off.
Right, a second down, Alex Albon. These tyres are 1-lap tyres, right?
They will be when it comes to qualifying, yeah. The problem is that to mask their lap times, a lot of the teams, they're either run, obviously, higher fuel, but they can also play with their engine modes. Right. So they tend to slap a set of new tyres on and turn the engine mode down at the same time. Their second lap or third lap on the same set of tyres, they turn the engine mode back up again.
And they know the differences, and then we don't. Lewis Hamilton goes 11th fastest. He's within a second. Max Verstappen, 1.2 seconds off the pace. I wonder, is there a difference in setup between himself and Sergio Perez? Perez currently 8th fastest, but out-qualifying Max, of course, in Baku last time out. Let's head back to the side of the track, shall we? Martin Brundle at turn 5.
Yeah, we ventured around to T5. It's a little bit scary down here, actually, because when cars are on an out lap or a slow down lap, they go really slowly out of turn 3. Verstappen came through on a hot lap, zigzagging between 2 cars, and I mean, terrifying basically, but it obviously looked clear to him. The other cars are trying to stay out of the way, but so you rock up here with superb acceleration. I haven't seen anybody come through that out yet. Here comes the Sauber having a go, and it's a minimum speed of just under 90 miles an hour through there, with a wall to greet you on the exit, and it's an arrive and drive corner. You come right up against the wall, literally just underneath us here. I don't want to get in the way of this fine marshal who's got a light panel in his hands. Perez not hanging around there. And you can hear them. They pick up the throttle quite hard, and then just as Sir Jackie Stewart, I remember telling me 40 years ago, never put the throttle on unless you're going to keep putting it on down to full throttle. And this is one of those corners where you pick up what you think's the right amount of torque demand, as it's known, throttle,
P11.
and then just keep going.
That's unbelievable,
you can hear this sort of deep-throated bellow from the exhaust as they commit, as they know they're not going to hit the wall on the exit. Yeah, so they pick it up, the engine's singing, a nice rasp, and then a deep-throated sort of moan and groan from the engine as they give it full beans when they realise they've got enough space. They will not hit the wall through the exit. So, and they sort of literally come right underneath, sort of almost cutting across our toes underneath here on the way in. Yeah, so this marshal here has got the light panels to my left here, Lee. Got the light panels, and will be, if he sees slow cars, cars in the wall, cars in the way, he will put the lights on out there. So he's focused intently, as you might imagine, on Formula One cars rocketing towards him here. And again, it just reminds you that, yeah, it might be one of the slower racetracks of the year, but they're still carrying huge amounts of speed in places such as this turn 5. Here comes Sergio Perez slowly. We'll have a look. We'll wait for one more fast car if there is one. Here comes an Aston Martin. He's giving it full beans. Go for it. Yeah, and a little bit of fluffiness on the apex, because they'll be using as little fuel as they can get away with on part throttle, and that's why you get. And as ever with the Honda engines, almost sounds like a two-stroke when they're off throttle, saving fuel. But I think that'll do from turn 5. Back to you, Crofty.
Thank you very much indeed, and good to have you trackside, Martin. While you were talking there, we saw a couple of replays. Alex Albon did indeed go close enough to the wall to rip a bit of the plastic wrapping, the sponsors wrapping on the concrete. That's what we saw by the side of the track. And Lewis Hamilton gave his thoughts on his best lap so far.
That's P11. Yeah, it's unbelievable, mate.
When he says unbelievable, I don't think he means in a positive way, Anthony. Just no. P11. He'll know he's given it everything on that lap, but to be a second off the pace, that's a long night back at base and a long morning here at the track to try and engineer their way around the struggles they're having.
I mean, 9 tenths off, or let's call it a second off, down there in P11, behind both RBs. It's not where you want to be, behind a Williams as well. But yeah, Russell, the best he can manage, P7 as well. So still ahead of both Red Bulls. That's the irony. Yeah. There wouldn't have been that long ago where you'd say, oh, we'll definitely take that. If someone could tell you you'd be ahead of both Red Bulls in an FP2 session, you'd say, yes, please. But not great for them either. I think
what I will say, with my complete uneducated brain here, is that if you think that making sure that the Baku wing never goes back on the McLaren makes a difference here, no, it doesn't, because it wasn't running here anyway. And Red Bull have got a lot more to think about than just the rear wing on the McLaren. Their car is struggling out there.
That was going to be my final point on the topic. We get obsessed about topics, don't we? And as we look at a replay here from Pierre Gasly, is this in traffic?
It's a lot of traffic.
Probably yes. And oh yeah, that's... and he's gotten the dust as well because
of that.
Was it Perez or... I think it was Perez.
It was definitely a Red Bull.
I remember him.
Yeah, what goes around comes around, as they say. And yeah, you don't want to take matters into your own hands. You'd prefer the stewards to get involved, but yeah, tensions rise, of course. But so we look at that lock-up from the Ferrari into that tricky turn 16, 17, Sainz this time around. I was just going to say, Crofty, we get transfixed, and the media get transfixed on one topic. That's the reason why X or Y has got the performance they do. No, it's a multitude of things that make up a Formula One car. That rear wing in Baku, yes, it was probably gave a bit of performance, no lie about it, but it wasn't the reason why they won that race. And it wasn't, obviously, that wing wasn't on the car in places like Budapest, for example.
It was one of the many reasons.
Exactly, yeah.
That contributed to a fine performance.
Where's your sign, Crofty? I want to see Crofty and big LEDs up there in the fan.
Yes, but if you heard the Ted Kravitz podcast...
I hit the wall pretty hard.
Understood.
We'll go back and try and find that. Yes, Ted, if you heard the Ted Kravitz podcast, there were a lot of fans chanting your name, Anthony's name, my name, and Martin Brundle's name when one of them wanted a photo with me last night. So they're a very passionate crowd here.
Did you give him a photo and say, signed it, love Martin Brundle?
Of course I did.
Glad to hear it. It's not my podcast, it's the Sky Sports F1 podcast. I just contributed it. As did you, Crofty, when I made you, gave you no choice to do it. But anyway, thanks for doing that.
It is your creation.
No.
This is your theatre.
Not at all. Let me tell you about the small bits that are making up the improvements to the Williams, and this is a crucial part of their season because they have quite a big upgrade to the front of the car. Front wishbones, track rod, push rod geometries, brake duct surfaces, and some of the fairings around it. And that front suspension now of the Williams looks really cutting edge, actually. It's really nice stuff. But as we were talking earlier in the day, and as Jamie Chadwick, also, of course, linked to the Williams team, was saying, it is only on Alex Albon's car. That is something to bear in mind as far as these Williams upgrades for the rest of the weekend. Franco Colapinto is quite open about it yesterday, as has James Vowles said. It's it's been a great effort by everybody at Grove to get these updates to the circuit, but they do only have enough for one car, and so Alex is going to have to be careful not to prang that into the wall. And it's anticipated that Colapinto will get that front suspension update at the next race in a few weeks in Austin.
Brilliant, Ted. Let's take a look down at turn 3. Watch as the wall comes ever closer to Lando Norris in the McLaren, and watch as Lando Norris brushes the wall.
Wow, well, we saw the message, didn't we, saying we don't see any damage on the car via the data, but it might be a different story once they get that car back into the pit. So I don't know if Ted will be able to actually have get a view on that. But it did look. It was hard enough to knock his head right into the headrest, quite hard.
But I think they've said from the pit, well, we don't see any damage. Everything's okay for the time being. So just under 17 minutes to go. Lando Norris out on track, as are many others completing their race simulations. As it turns out, the qualifying simulation, he was the fastest. And we can take a look at some lap times and see who's actually producing some decent race paces. We'll try and give some averages as well as they go on. Now, it's interesting that Norris is doing his race run here on the soft tyre, and it could well be that even with 177 metres into turn 1, the soft tyre is a starting tyre for Sunday's race, given the likelihood of an early safety car as well.
It's all about track position, and also your qualifying position. So this, to me, Crofty, proves that they think, and it should come as no surprise, they've got a car that will be on the front row, probably pole, or maybe pole position. So if you're on pole position, you better get a good start, like you said. So that's the soft tyre. And also, you want to know how far it can go in the race.
Correct.
That's what they're doing now.
Now, it might be that the tyre can do 10 laps, just to pluck a number out of thin air. They might not need to do 10 laps, because we could get a safety car after 8 laps, and if you're on the soft tyre, you are coming in. The pit lane loss here is about 25 seconds. So it's a lengthy time for you to be in that pit lane, and if you can get it reduced when there's a safety car, then you are flying and you're in business. And by the way, safety car interventions here, we've had at least one every single year of the Singapore Grand Prix. I don't really, yeah, last year, sorry, the last 6 Singapore Grand Prix, we've had 11 safety car deployments. Bernd Mailander, who has done nothing, quite frankly, for the last 8 Grand Prix, he's sat in his safety car thinking, I'm primed, I'm raring to go if I need to get out of the track. It has not been necessary. We have not had a safety car. First time since back end of 2004 to Imola 2005 that we haven't had a safety car for 8 races. So Bernd is walking around saying that is probably going to come to an end. I'm expecting to be a bit busier this weekend.
Well, you never know. You know, stats are there to be broken, Crofty, but all signs point to Bernd Mailander having to actually do some work this weekend on a race day.
Because the key here is you've got close barriers. It's a street circuit. It is physically oppressive when you walk around, let alone be in a racing car. And that also takes its toll on your mental capacity as well. So sometimes a bit of brain fade comes in because you are absolutely exhausted. That's in the latter stages of the
There's
race.
something with the brakes that is strange still. I keep looking the front right. Understood?
You've got such a inherent feel to the car. You were in it just last week in Baku, and that's all about braking as well on that track. You just got such fidelity with your left foot, feeling the car under the brakes, and you smash the brake pedal when you got full load of downforce like here with Colapinto into turn 7, and then you bleed off that pressure as the car starts to slow down and it loses downforce, and you need that judgment, and if it's missing you pick it up instantly like Sainz has now.
There's something with the brakes that is strange still. I keep looking the front right. Understood?
And it's something with just over 12 minutes to go in this session that they're probably going to have to find a solution to overnight and hope that they've got that solution right. And it doesn't rear its head in Q3, but Q3 isn't quite, FP3, that isn't quite as representative in terms of conditions as what we're seeing now.
Well, we heard him complain as well in FP1,
yeah.
and he wasn't happy then. We're quite used to those kind of comments from the likes of Haas. You know, Magnussen was complaining as well. They often complain about the brakes in that team. But yeah, a bit of a rarity there for Ferrari, and hopefully they can sort that out for Carlos, because you really depend on having a good steady braking characteristic from the car here at all times, whether it's a low fuel run or high fuel run in the race, of course. So yeah, I think, can we go down to Ted? Are you waiting for us, Ted?
I am, Anthony, with an update from Aston Martin, where there's been a lot of work on Lance Stroll's car on his side of the garage. They've had the engine cover off, just about put it on now, to just put everything all done up on the screws. Back tight again. They're ready to do some flow-vis testing on the rear wing. As you can see, if you can see a bin liner resting on the rear wing, there you go. They've got the bin liner ready, so they don't get all the flow-vis paraffin paint on the garage floor. They're going to do that and then send the car out. Can I just show you the front wing as well, where it says Aramco on this front wing? That's brand new for this race. It's a much higher incidence front wing, much higher front angle front wing on there, just to complement the increase on the rear wing angle as well, to help balance out the car. So yeah, glad to see that Lance is going to get a bit more race running now, because he's been stuck in the garage for 10-15 minutes.
Yeah, he's not got many laps that he's going to complete when he comes out as well. Winless in the last 7 Grand Prix at any stage. At any stage, Anthony, did we think we'd say that when the season started in Bahrain? Let's go to the Red Bull RB pit wall. Part of the same family. Lauren Mekis, the team boss. Lauren, sorry it's a late night. We're all getting a bit brain fade here, to be fair. But your car, over a single lap, looks competitive out there. What about over the race runs as well?
Look, the race runs have just started, so it's a bit early to know if we have the same sort of pace than we had at the short run. Certainly, short run we are a step in the good direction. You know, let's not get too excited. It's only FP2, but we are working hard to get to understand and to use correctly our updates, and it certainly seems to be a step in the right direction. So it's an encouraging sign.
Laurent, Anthony here. So what are the drivers saying about the car? Are they happy with the balance? Is there still more to come?
Look, the balance was in the right window straight away in FP1. However, you know, on these sort of tracks, very high brake, very high evolutions. Even if you're happy with the car, there is no way you can just stay there and leave the car as it is. So we've done a number of changes between P1 and P2 to try to make sure we can anticipate and follow the track evolutions. And it seems to be leaving the car in the sweet spot for now. But there is still a lot to learn, and as you say, the focus turns now to the long runs.
How tricky is that to do, to make those estimations and get them right, given that you can have a guess, but you've got no 100% guarantee as to what the track is going to do by this stage of an FP2?
Yeah, you know, you're right. It's always tricky, but you know, to put in the context of our teams, you know, having so much steps to do in front of us, you know, we have to be daring. We have to take this sort of risk. We have to make sure we are not standing still. So it's better to do steps in the wrong directions and to learn from it rather than not trying it and thinking about it for the rest of the weekend. So we have a rather aggressive approach when it comes to exploring setups and having multiple points that we can correlate with our data back at the factory.
And bearing in mind, Laurent, that this is, in FP2, the most relevant, we always say this is the most relevant session, but I'm sure, as you just mentioned, you're always keen to try to further improve the car balance. Do you therefore, how much of this session do you then ignore or trust going into FP3 when it's not quite as relevant?
You know, I think a lot of it you have to trust, because you plan your FP2 programs to make it as relevant as it can be for the race team. So you have to trust what you have done. You have to trust your data system, and then of course, are you going to take another risk in FP3 to get another few hundred on the car, even if it can put the car out of balance for a moment and having to come back for quali? Yes, we will do that, even if it looks quite good now. I'm sure tonight, when we will be in front of trying to analyze our limitations and in front of the choice between being conservative and trying another step, I'm sure we'll be trying another step. And you know, it's part of all the progresses we need to do in the team if we want to shoot with bigger competitors. So it's a work in progress.
Thanks ever so much, Laurent. Absolutely brilliant. We'll speak to you tomorrow. Have an enjoyable night, but I'm sure it's going to be a very late one here at the track. Meanwhile, Oscar Piastri has hit the barrier at the exit of turn 17 with more force, I think, than we've seen anyone else do so far this evening. And Ted Kravitz, he came straight into the pits. Any damage?
No, amazingly, but it was enough for him to think, oh, I better come into the pits and get this checked out. So came in, they just had a look at the front wing end plate, but the way he hit it was square on. They were happy to send him straight out again. So, yeah, I mean, Laurent McKeith's there talking about analysing our limitations. I think Oscar's found the limit of how hard he can hit the McLaren front wing. Any more than that, and he would have had it off. But, yeah, good knowledge to take into qualifying tomorrow.
Thank you very much indeed, Ted Kravitz. Verstappen's last lap was a 1:38.0. Compare that to Fernando Alonso, 1:38.4, and Alex Albon, 1:37.5. Albon is doing his runs on the medium tyre at the moment. Verstappen on the hard compound tyre. How concerned are Red Bull going to be, do you think, about their one-lap pace in this session? To quote Laurent Mekies, don't get too excited, it's only FP2, but it is the representative session.
I think Red Bull would be mildly concerned, not hugely concerned, because yes, this is a track where they have suffered in the past a bit more in this generation of F1 car since 2022. So I'm sure they would have preferred to be further up the timesheets, but not panic stations right now, because there are teams in front of them, I'm sure, who are running less fuel, or were running less fuel in the performance run, or a higher engine mode. And they'll be able to see all of that through the data that they get from other teams as well, via the GPS and other means. They can tell whereabouts they are. So it'd be interesting to speak to some of the drivers after this session and we'll find a clearer picture based on their knowledge. So what's happened here into turn 1 with Lando Norris losing the rear end.
Is that just because he got tucked up too close behind the Sauber and lost downforce? Or
yes,
sliding, wasn't he?
A bit of being distracted as well by a car in front, but certainly losing downforce in that corner, and that's something to watch out for. I mean, I remember Lewis at this start last year running wide through that very part of the track, and another car getting, it's the Ferrari this time, behind the Sauber getting caught up. So into turn 1, but this is, yeah, having a look.
Oh, as Lando Norris
has stopped. 7 now.
Just to interrupt, I think Lando Norris has stopped just on the exit of turn 7. Here we are riding on board with him at the moment, and he's still tucked up behind that Sauber, and he's gone into the runoff area, and he might struggle to get that turn round in one movement.
Caught his friend again, didn't he, the Sauber, into turn 7 that time around. Yeah. So yeah, just that's part of the problem when you've got such a fast car.
You catch people a lot quicker. When they go offline, there is a lot of dust and probably marbles coming too. That is very, very pretty, it has to be said. It looks like Christmas has arrived early, but I'd rather see what was going on the track.
But that's why, Crofty, yeah, that's why I think you got such a high chance of having a safety car around here, because as soon as you do veer offline, it's almost like, think of it like a drying circuit where you've got a dry line and wet patches either side. Think of the action we see when cars veer off too wide onto the wet stuff. Immediately they're taken off the circuit onto the grass or barriers, and we see a big moment. And it's the same here. Think of that racing line like a dry line on a wet track. Yeah. If you think of it like that, that's what it's like for the drivers out there. As the marbles continue to build either side of that racing line, you daren't get onto them, because then you're in the barrier.
And I know, look, we're in a city here, and there's a lot of building work goes on in the city, but I'm not sure there's a massive amount of building work going on around the track. But it does seem a lot more dusty at this stage of a weekend than I remember here in the past, which just makes it ever more difficult if you're having to get some overtaking done. By the way, shout out to the Sauber team, who have installed 2 slush machines in their hospitality unit, of which you can come and avail yourself of an ice cold fluorescent green drink. I've had a lot of slush today. It's been brilliant.
Sounds healthy. Yeah.
Next time you're at the Skypad, I'll bring some along for you.
Oh, yeah.
Keep it cool.
Bring it along. Not sure if I'll drink it, but bring it along by all means.
You will. You'll be awake all night. The amount of E-numbers in that was brilliant. Ted Kravitz, down to you.
Well, not to mention the amount of sugar. Have they really? Where is the slush machine? I haven't seen it
properly. The slush machine. So
it's not in the garage, that's for sure. No, I'm watching the Sauber garage at the moment.
And all the mechanics have been trying it out as well. They're loving it too.
Blue raspberry.
We've got into the wall George Russell.
Ah. I was just going to say.
It's not where he crashed last year in the race. George Russell has stopped at turn 8. And that might be the end of the session, unless he's kept the engine going and he can reverse back out again. But every single car is on the track at the moment, and actually finding some time to reverse is going to be a bit tricky. We do see this when the tyres just give up. One little mistake there, there's absolutely no margin for error.
Well, just as we were talking about it, wasn't it? If you go too far off the line, if you one little lock up and you get to that corner where we've seen a few cars run wide and down that escape road earlier on, you just see to the top of your screen, and tense faces at Mercedes because they can just see the lengthy repair job that's coming their way, and hopefully that front left has survived it. Well, and it is just a front wing.
Yeah, the front wing is going to be left behind.
But that's a lockup that has happened to him too late in the corner, and he hasn't had time to bail out of it. No, it's on the nose as well. So I think the left front has survived it.
So right at the end of the session, that front wing is going to need picking up and delivering back to the Mercedes garage, and they'll try and salvage as much of it as they possibly can. And George Russell is limping home, and this is what caused it. Left-hand turn at turn 7, everything's fine up until now.
Yeah, just as I thought. He's you know what? He's actually done the right thing there, just to straighten the car up and go in nose first to minimise the damage.
I'm in the wall. Snatch the front right.
Hey, sure.
And is that just Is that driver error, or the tyres have just got to the end of their grip life, or?
It's driver error. The lock-up is what would usually be an innocent lock-up on any other circuit where you've got some runoff, but that's the joy of a street track. You go a bit too far, a mistake happens a bit too late, like that lock-up caught him out just at the apex. If it had happened earlier on, could have bailed out of it.
Is Yuki Tsunoda onto the Esplanade Bridge, brushes the wall, and emerges unscathed at the end of that. Ted, down to you.
Hello?
You there, Ted?
Yeah, I'm always here. The point I was just going to make was unusually we haven't seen anyone really properly in the wall with some big work for the mechanics. And I was just going to say from down here, I can sense the thanks that the mechanics are going to have for their drivers this evening, that they're not going to have to put some car back together again and do loads of accident repair damage. I think that's on the driver's mind going into these sessions as well. The last thing they want to do when the working conditions are so tough, slushies or not, for all the mechanics down here, the last thing the drivers wanted to do was to give them any extra work they didn't need to do. And I'm just thinking, Crofty, Anthony, really, maybe you can pick up on this, will we see more as the drivers push more tomorrow? Do you feel, Anthony, from what you've seen, that the drivers are driving within a bit of a margin of themselves, what we've seen today?
Well, they naturally will do in the race runs. That's why this is such a rarity, I'd say, Ted. They can't get that nose off, so maybe it's done some damage further up. But
maybe it's wedged itself in a little bit.
Yeah.
But they've got plenty of time to do it. Let me give you some lap times here. Lando Norris on the soft tyre did a 7-lap run, started out with a 1:38.5, finished with a 1:37.8, got down to a 1:36.7. Charles Leclerc on the medium 3.69 laps, started with a 1:37.3, ended with a 1:37.6, so fairly consistent over it. Did a 1:37.1 as his best lap in that. Piastri, 3 laps only, 1:37.7, 1:37.8, 1:37.3. Verstappen on the hard tyre, 1:37.2 for his first lap. That was his best lap. Everything else was in the 1:38s. Finished on a 1:38.8, so quite a bit of deg on those hard tyres over the course of 5 laps. George Russell, those medium tyres of George's, 3, 6, 9, 10, 11 laps. Started off with a 1:37.5. Cool down lap, did a 1:40.6 for his second lap, did a 1:41.6 in there as well, did a 1:54.4 and ended up with a 1:37.8. So as best as I can give you the lap times that we've been writing down on that one, Norris looking fairly consistent on the soft tyre. Charles Leclerc, I think, very consistent on the medium tyre at first glance for his race stints. Yeah, Norris has had a good run there, definitely, and they've done a lot of homework on his car. That side of the garage, started off on the hard tyre, got onto the soft, fastest time of the session on that soft tyre, ran it for a long time, deep into that session, and then only threw on a set of hards for the last 3 laps. So you can see clearly where their main work has taken place. So a good understanding of what that soft tyre can do, and based on those lap times you've just read out, the soft tyre, it will definitely be the one to start the race on, of course, and they'll be able to go very deep into the race on that soft if there isn't a safety car. I'm going to be fascinated to hear what Sergio Perez and Max Verstappen say when they climb out of their Red Bulls, and I don't see happy faces on the Red Bull pit wall there, just faces looking at data, and there's going to be a lot of data needs to be crunched tonight. This has not been a good session for Red Bull, either on the qualifying laps or on the race simulations as well. Max Verstappen only 15th fastest. Tomorrow's another day, but they're not going to get another go under the lights in the conditions that we go qualifying and racing in until we go qualifying tomorrow. Thank you very much indeed, Anthony. I'll see you at the Skypad in a few moments' time. This has been the story of practice 2 and the fastest lap times. It was Lando Norris who had the quickest time from Charles Leclerc. McLaren against Ferrari separated by 58 1/1000th of a second, and they were well clear of the rest. Carlos Sainz over 6/10ths back in third. Yuki Tsunoda and Daniel Ricciardo separated by 100th of a second. Oscar Piastri in the middle of the 2 RBs. A very impressive one-lap performance from the RB team. George Russell, 7th fastest, ended in the wall. 8th fastest, Perez, then Albon, Hulkenberg, Perez. The leading Red Bull, Max Verstappen, 1.3 seconds near enough off the pace. Fernando Alonso was 12th fastest, Lance Stroll, his teammate, 14th. Magnussen was 13th, whilst his teammate Hulkenberg was in the top 10. The Alpines will be disappointed to be down to 17th and 18th. Zhou Guanyu finished ahead of Valtteri Bottas. That is FP2. We'll see you back in the daylight for more action for FP3.